Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And in our ongoing series on Medal of Honor winners, tonight we're going to talk about Major Howard Lee of the Marines, who died recently at the age of 85. Major, then Captain Lee, was awarded his Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War on October 25, 1967, for his actions near Cam Lo in the Republic of South Vietnam on the 8th and 9th of August in 1966. Howard Lee was originally from New York City, DeWitt Clinton High School. That's our #1 high school for podcast subjects. He was in the Marine Corps in the 1950s and found himself in country in Vietnam in 1966. In July of 1966, he was part of Operation Hastings. Let's talk a little bit about that. In 1966, the Vietnam War is in full-scale escalation. The North Vietnamese began sending large numbers of their best crack troops through the demilitarized zone in the spring of 1966. By the summer of '66, the United States decided to interdict these troops and prevent them from coming into South Vietnam from the north through the DMZ. From mid-July 1966 to early August, Operation Hastings was meant to stop North Vietnamese troops from entering through search and destroy operations. The United States essentially put a large force, primarily of Marines, backed by air support, all along the southern border of the demilitarized zone. The 3-week Operation Hastings was deemed a success because most North Vietnamese troops could not get through to South Vietnam. In addition, the North Vietnamese body count was high. But fighting around the DMZ in the summer of 1966 was some of the most brutal fighting of the entire Vietnam War. Because of the, quote, success of Operation Hastings, it was decided to extend it into Operation Prairie in the first week of August. That was the operation for which Captain Lee was awarded the Medal of Honor. Now, most Americans don't know about Operation Hastings and Operation Prairie, and even at the time, most Americans didn't know that. And unfortunately, it was a little more complicated than the military presented to the American citizenry. It wasn't the success they touted. In many respects, it was a failure. Although it stopped most North Vietnamese troops from entering the South at the time and did create a high body count, it didn't do anything to stop the troops that were entering from the Ho Chi Minh Trail southwest of the DMZ. In addition, many of the North Vietnamese troops that were engaged around the DMZ simply fled back into North Vietnam, rested and regrouped, and came back again and again. In essence, North Vietnam paid very little attention to the DMZ. On top of this, Operation Hastings and Operation Prairie exacted a huge toll in manpower from American troops, and many troops were taken from the south to help man the DMZ, and this left the cities and the countryside in the south unfortified with enough American troops. For most American troops, both Operation Hastings and Operation Prairie were fought in unfamiliar terrain, and they were under-equipped to deal with what was essentially a long-term North Vietnamese army threat. So body counts and immediate interdiction, which were portrayed to the United States citizenry and government as a success, were in reality only a holding action and were actually more of a failure. It's just one more instance of the high-level military embodied by Westmoreland and the high-level citizen command embodied by McNamara not understanding the tactics and strategy of the enemy. Eventually, in Operation Prairie, there would be instances where American reconnaissance troops would be caught in situations where the North Vietnamese trapped them with large numbers of concealed forces, and as I said, these were the best North Vietnamese troops. And on August 8th and August 9th, that's a situation that Major Lee found himself in near Cam Lo. According to the Congressional Medal of Honor website, Captain Lee's citation reads as follows. Howard Lee, rank Captain, Company E, 2nd Battalion, date of issue 10/25/67, place date near Cam Lo, Republic of Vietnam, 8-9 August 1966, organization U.S. Marine Corps, Division 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, a platoon of Major then Captain Lee's company, while on an operation deep in enemy territory, was attacked and surrounded by a large Vietnamese force. Realizing that the unit had suffered numerous casualties, depriving it of effective leadership, and fully aware that the platoon was even then under heavy attack by the enemy, Major Lee took 7 men and proceeded by helicopter to reinforce the beleaguered platoon. Major Lee disembarked from the helicopter with 2 of his men and, braving withering enemy fire, led them into the perimeter, where he fearlessly moved from position to position, directing and encouraging the overtaxed troops. The enemy then launched a massive attack with the full might of their forces. Although painfully wounded by fragments from an enemy grenade in several areas of his body, including his eye, Major Lee continued undauntedly throughout the night to direct the valiant defense, coordinate supporting fire, and apprise higher headquarters of the plight of the platoon. The next morning he collapsed from his wounds and was forced to relinquish command. However, the small band of Marines had held their position and repeatedly fought off many vicious enemy attacks for a grueling 6 hours until their evacuation was effected the following morning. Major Lee's actions saved his men from capture, minimized the loss of lives, and dealt the enemy a severe defeat. His indomitable fighting spirit, superb leadership, and great personal valor in the face of tremendous odds reflect great credit upon himself and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. Here is the Medal of Honor video where Major Lee explains in his own words what happened on those 2 days in August 1966.
I was born and raised in New York City, and till the age of 21 when I joined the Marine Corps and left the city, heading south to Quantico.
Howard Lee joined the Marine Reserves in 1955. He was commissioned an officer and later chose to integrate into the regular Marine Corps. In the early 1960s, Lee had heard the reports of American military advisors operating in Vietnam, and by 1965, with American ground forces being deployed, Lee knew that his chance for combat had arrived.
I felt, in my particular case, going to war, I was as well trained as I ever could be. I had been a rifle company commander. I had taught infantry tactics at the basic school and weapons. So I knew all of the weapons and stuff organic to a Marine rifle company and infantry battalion. I was the 3 of an infantry battalion. So I said, this is the perfect time for me to go.
Lee arrived in Vietnam in the spring of 1966, where he was captain of a company in the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. One of the platoons in Lee's company was on a reconnaissance mission deep in enemy territory when it was attacked and surrounded by a large North Vietnamese force.
When that happened, of course, I'm on the radio monitoring all this. I'm trying to talk to the platoon commander, and I can't get him, and a young Marine on the radio was yelling and screaming, and I hear all this firing in the background. I said, oh my God, I can't figure out what's going on from talking to him. I got to get out there. I got in one helicopter with 2 guys, the 3 were in another helicopter, and we flew out there. When we got to the zone, I told the pilot, I asked the pilot to tell him, I said, I'd like to go down there on the ground, and we flew around and checked it out. All I could see is, firing going back and forth between my Marines and those guys. And I said, I need to get down on the ground and try to reinforce the platoon. He said, Captain, that's crazy. It's a hot zone. We already lost 2 or 3 helicopters. I can't remember how many it was. I said, well, look, if we don't get down there, I think it's going to get even worse down there. So let's make a shot at it. So he took us down. And he was right. As we were going down, we were taking rounds all the way in. Luckily, the helicopter didn't crash. We jump out. One man was shot in the arm. I get nicked in the ear. But we managed to wiggle our way up into our lines. My Marines opened fire on all of as much as they could on the enemy to help suppress their fires. And I got up to the top of the hill. And sure enough, my platoon commander was killed. The platoon sergeant was seriously wounded. I had another couple of dead and 3 or 4 wounded. So I went around trying to rally everybody and encourage them and tell them, no sweat, we'll get the battalion in here. We're going to be all right. The other helicopter, by the way, wouldn't come in. What they did is they took my Marines and put them on a hilltop about a mile away and left them there. And I could see them on the hill, so I got back on the radio and told them, pick those Marines up and take them back to Don Hall. Don't leave them out there. They're not going to do anything from over there. So they did. They took them out. For the next 6 hours or so, we fought these guys back and forth. And the thing that saved our butt is I had all kinds of supporting arms. I had not only artillery, air, but I had UE gunships, which were really effective because they could get in real low. They could try to get right on top of these guys and just blast the heck out of them. I think it was keeping them from launching anything really big at us. And I'm talking to the battalion commander. I'm telling him, I think we're okay as long as you can get us ammunition. And he said, okay, we'll try to get you ammunition. He said, we have a good position, and good fields of fire, and we can hold this hilltop. We started bringing the helicopters. They would make a pass, kick the ammunition out the door, and it would invariably miss and go rolling down the hill. So I finally called one of the helicopter pilots and said, look, all you're doing is giving ammunition to the enemy. How about just land on the hill, kick it out the door, and take your chance? I said, I'll do it. And he did. He came in, landed on top of the hill. Soon he got down, RPG took the tail end of the helicopter off, but didn't hurt him, didn't blow up the ammunition. Now I had 2 more Marine officers and an enlisted man and 2 machine guns, so we were in good shape.
Just before dark, the enemy launched an attack that lasted through the night.
In the course of that, I was up trying to see what's going on, where we needed to do something. The grenade landed next to me. And it was interesting, the thought I had. It was we used to call in World War II potato mashers. It was like a can of soup with a wooden handle on it. And it landed right next to me. And I was kind of fascinated. I looked at it and said, oh. And it was going, shh. I said, oh. I started to turn away, went off. And up my right leg, side, arm, face, one piece of my eye, luckily a small piece of my right eye.
Although painfully wounded, Lee continued throughout the night to direct the valiant defense, coordinating artillery and concentrating the Marines' firepower.
And sometime during the night, I don't know exactly when, I passed out from loss of blood. Next thing I knew, it was morning, and the helicopters were coming in to get us out of there. While I was at Bethesda, they assigned me to Headquarters Marine Corps. And while I was at Headquarters Marine Corps, I got a call from Mrs. White, who was head of medals and decorations. And she said, I need you to come up. We got to talk about your Medal of Honor ceremony. Who are you going to invite? And I said, what? My what? He said, yeah. Didn't you know you were put in for a medal? I said, well, I didn't really know. I heard from a friend that that was a possibility. I really did not expect that. Lyndon Johnson was the president. It took place on October 25th, 1967. He just said he was proud of me and of all the service people for the job they were doing. He knew it was a tough war, and there was a lot of dissent, but he depended on people like me. It's quite touching, I thought.
I would suspect that by the time Major Lee received his Medal of Honor from President Johnson, the president was beginning to realize that they had a failed strategy, and he couldn't keep brave men like Major Lee keep fighting to support that strategy. 5 months later, Lyndon Johnson announced that he would not run for president again. Well, I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. To you, Major Lee, our gratitude is unlimited. We cannot begin to repay the debt we owe you. Semper Fi.
It should represent the sacrifice of all the people. Most of the Medal of Honor posthumous awards. And I think if you talk to recipients, you'll say that most will say that they wear the medal not just for themselves, but for all of their people who were with them when the incident happened. The real heroes of any war are the people who don't make it. The people that make the ultimate sacrifice. And we kind of wear it for them.